Welcome to the 6 5 podcast. I'm Daniel Newman, your co-host today, joined in person live for I think the first time ever for our regular show.
It is. It
for,
is.
for our podcast right here in beautiful Austin, Texas.
Yes, sir. We are in the More Insights and Strategy World Headquarters on the 19th floor, looking at the view.
Yeah, it is a nice view, and we would show it to you, but we'd have to move all kinds of gear around, and you would see how well ratcheted this whole system is together, and that maybe, and just maybe, the illusion. No, actually, this is a pretty good setup. But no, it's great to be here, Pat. It's great to sit down in person and do a podcast together. I couldn't possibly leave Austin and not have us record an episode of the 6-5. And the thing is with our event upcoming, 6-5 Summit, check it out, the65summit.com. We haven't been slacking, but between keeping up with all of our clients, all the advising, all the writing and articles and Forbes and different places, and keeping up with all the segments we're recording for our awesome event, the 6-5 Summit, the65summit.com. Okay, I won't do that again.
It's a good plug. Kidding. I like that.
Thank you. We've had a little harder time than usual just finding the time to do this spot. So anyway, we got a great show. We got a lot to talk about today, Pat. I don't know, but what do you think? Do you want to just dive right in?
Yeah, let's just dive right in. But I do want to say how much I have appreciated doing the65summit.com some videos this week.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it was good. So let's dive right in.
So the first topic today, we're going to talk about Oracle. So Oracle Cloud had some announcements for their fully managed regions. And then there was another piece of news related to their supply chain management. So I'll talk about one for a second. So we're kind of doing a double whammy here.
Yeah.
So in terms of the region cloud at customer, basically Oracle now is rolling out a series of dedicated regions and basically upping its hybrid game, expanding its capability to deliver Exadata and expanding its ability to offer its full control plane on-prem in a fully managed, caged-off capacity, upping its game. And I've actually been reading around the internet, Pat, and for the first time in a long time, there's some positive PR coming out from some cloud thinkers that is saying, hey, we think Oracle is doing things right.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly looking at them a little bit differently. That's for sure. And I know I'm one of many analysts, but I'd like to think that my vote counts as well. And what I was really struck by was the simplicity of it, right? Which is everything that you currently have in the Oracle public cloud, literally everything, OS, control plane, applications, security, autonomous database, you can have that exact, literally a carbon copy of that. And I know I'm showing my age here, an exact copy of that on-prem. And there's no requirement to connect to the cloud, unlike some cloud vendors, which I think is a big differentiator.
Yeah, I definitely would weigh in on that, Pat. And I'd also say you don't want to gloss over the whole autonomous database and autonomous Linux. This is one of the things that Larry Ellison and the team at Oracle is really riding high on, is the fact that you can run this thing, you can upgrade this thing, update this thing, and you can do it all with basically guaranteed uptime. And using the autonomous Linux, it continues to run, and it can run seamlessly through a lot of issues. And we've all heard about issues in certain clouds with certain applications. And he's basically touting that with this technology, it can be fixed. Now, again, we're doing a double whammy. So we're going to, quickly pop over to the other side of Oracle. So you mentioned their applications, Pat.
Right.
So one of the areas that the company has been pretty focused on too is, basically in this post-COVID world, companies are going to be challenged to deliver services and solutions in a new way. We're seeing.
I have no idea what that sound is, by the way.
Yeah, we're just gonna roll with it today. But we've got these services. Oracle's got its ERP, its CRM, and it's also got its SaaS. And so, by the way, part of its control plane is that it runs SaaS It runs all the SaaS applications. Now that goes back to that Regions Cloud
Yeah.
on-prem, which is interesting. But in its Fusion supply chain software and management tool, the company went through a bunch of updates this week, and essentially, there's a handful of key updates, and this is worth just mentioning. Everything from replenishment to backlog management, depot repair, project-driven supply chain, and then finally managing channels more effectively. And so I looked at all these things across the board, and I basically said the company is deploying software for a post-COVID world. So that's what the company's really trying to think about is how do we change their software to be more useful in a world that's going to be run completely different, that is going to have more distributed work, that's going to need systems that are more capable of managing more complex topics.
Yeah, what I was really impressed at is, and what I've really grown to appreciate about Oracle Apps is its ability to just move so much more quickly. When I look at some of its key competitors, specifically in this space, like an SAP, I just see these guys working at a pace that's 2 or 3 times the rate at their next best competitor.
Yeah, and this is where we're going to see challenge coming in. I know Oracle's really on the heels of Salesforce.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned challenging SAP. We know Microsoft is going to be aggressive, and Microsoft has shown a lot of ambition in the space. Yeah. But overall, what I like about it is that the company is thinking about how work is going to look in the future and building software that's got that in mind. So let's jump to the second topic, Pat. Dell Tech. So you and I talked about this theoretically a couple of weeks ago, but this week the company has filed a sort of an inquiry. Was it? It's Schedule D, I believe it's called.
It's like 13D. I have no idea what the other Ds are.
There's a lot of Schedule D, 13D. I don't know. It's a schedule of some type that the company has now formalized what we had heard about, that it's looking at possibly spinning off its 81%. Pat, I'll let you start on this one.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's 2 ways I think we should look at this. I think we should look at this from a Wall Street point of view, and that just reminds me to say, do not make any stock decisions based on what we say.
Yes,
here. This is for entertainment and information purposes only. But
the old disclaimer.
Exactly. But I think we look at this 2 ways. I think we look at this from a customer point of view, an industry point of view, a Dell customer, that is, a VMware customer, and then from a Wall Street. So this is crazy, but if you look at the entire value of Dell Technologies, which owns 81% of VMware, it's lower than 81% of VMware.
Yeah.
Right. 81% of VMware would be around 51 billion, and I think Dell Tech is in the 30s.
Yeah,
right?
maybe at 38, 39 after the pop from this.
Yeah. So from Wall Street point of view, it makes no sense. And I talked to some of the folks in Dell's M&A group last night. And again, I'm not a Wall Street expert. I'm an tech industry expert, but really explained to me that Wall Street looks at the way the capital structure is run, and they assign a value to Dell. It makes no sense to me, but that's the way it is. And from a customer point of view, and there was something very telling in the disclosure, which talked about this strategic alignment and relationship. And I'm reading that as we want to have the same relationship that we had with Dell Technologies. I don't think it would be in perpetuity, but for a long time, which, so if VMware was spun out, Dell Technologies wouldn't be at too big of a disadvantage moving forward, because I think we've both seen, if you are an infrastructure and all you do is infrastructure, your future isn't very bright and it's not very long. You have to have a services and software aspect of it to not only make it sticky, but also to boost your margins.
Yeah, I'll touch on this quickly because you hit a lot of the key points. I mean, Michael Dell, he's an engineer of great financial deals for him and his shareholders, and that's the job of a CEO. And so when he went public the first time, he served his shareholders. When he went back private, he served his shareholders. He went back public, he served his shareholders. And when he acquired the interest in VMware, it was good for the company. It's consistently helped its quarterly performances look stronger. And heading into this particular deal, it should actually propel the value of Dell because Dell will be well served, because like you said, company's got a market cap around under 40 billion, and VMware spun off alone could go at, you said 51, but it could easily go at 80 or 90.
Yeah.
Remember, Red Hat went at 34. And generally when these deals go, there's a premium. Generally there's a premium above what just the market rate is. And VMware's a hot commodity when it comes to bringing hybrid cloud together. And hybrid cloud, by the way, is a pretty hot commodity as well. So I'm really interested in this. I do think the one long-term consideration for Dell is, how do you replace something like this in terms of its impact in enabling Dell to have this great connective tissue to the cloud world? Dell has done a good job with Dell Tech Cloud. Dell has done a good job with its Dell Tech Services on Demand, but those are still pretty young in terms of what it's offering. And all of these companies recognize the need to go hybrid. So VMware has been its catalyst. Can it continue to be its catalyst? And that's going to be the question going forward. But really interesting developments there. Let's hop into the third thing, Pat. So Google Cloud Next. I've listened in a little. You've listened in a little bit more. What's going on with the event and the company's direction?
Yeah. So first off, we always talk a little bit about a little inside baseball about how analysts do events and how the industry does events. And Google's actually spreading what was a week-long event over 4 weeks. And it's just a different way of doing it. So you really only have to commit maybe 3 or 4 hours per week. If you're an analyst, if you're a customer, maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. So I'm interested to see how that works, because it can cut both ways, But to me, the biggest impact, the biggest walkaways for me were a greater penetration of vertical solutions in areas you would expect, carrier and telco, and leveraging the edge in retail. Google loves to talk about how it's kind of running the score up on AWS in retail. But I like this play, and they're starting to look almost like a SaaS company in a way to me, not completely, because you still have to architect everything around it, but there are elements that they laid out that all you have to do is bring your data, and they have packaged software that you can just go and run like a SaaS player. I thought that was big. The other thing I really liked is what they're doing in security and trust. Now, I have never heard any Google property being hacked and insecure. And that doesn't mean it hasn't. It means to me they've just invested a heck of a lot of money and effort into.
Where did you search it?
Yeah, on Google, yeah, and Bing. So DuckDuckGo maybe too. But anyways, I really like what they're doing in regulated industries and in government with what they call confidential compute. And confidential compute is essentially total encryption at rest, in process, and in storage. And a lot of the things you don't normally see is when you're computing on something to have a complete end-to-end encryption. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I overall, Pat, from what I tracked, there's a couple of things. One is Google is Google has appeared to me to be a fast follower in a lot of things that it's doing. I'm not really sure, like the confidential compute thing you mentioned is an interesting architecture around offering security and offering encryption, things that I'm sure its competition also offer in their own way. And again, there's always caveats. There's usually reasons why. Remember our arguments about Zoom and collaboration and how data is managed and secured in transit. The vertical stuff is another great example. I mean, listen, we've been hearing IBM for a few years talking about their financial cloud. AWS, we've seen expand and make significant investments in hiring a team of people to manage vertical clouds, even in our space, in the analyst space. Oracle, in their announcements last week, were very specific in talking about regulated, compliance-driven clouds, and that doesn't make it bad, by the way. I think the point is that what's happening now is the parity is growing between these different clouds. And so they all have something to offer, and they're all offering more and more similar types of feel. I mean, even Google making an investment in a company that integrates mainframes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to see that was something that IBM was super specialized in, and now you're seeing it is something that Google is going to offer. So I think you're going to see an innovation leapfrog going on in a lot of ways. Google's showing some encouraging things. I'm still not ready to bet on them over AWS and Azure. I'm not even necessarily ready to declare them number 3, but I am saying that the announcements this week were encouraging, and the company's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think the company either needs to go big with scale, like Azure and AWS, or get micronically focused on vertically to meet the Oracles and the IBMs. One final thing they did, and it is so funny, to your point of how it's starting to look like, oh, kind of everybody's doing the same thing. That was on Anthos with their private cloud. Big announcements there. Bare metal option. AWS running Anthos as your control plane and AWS Cloud, and a preview of Azure. Oh, they're adding virtual machines. It's not just containers anymore. And literally, it looks like every big cloud provider is going in this same direction, which is run any workload anywhere if you want, anywhere you want. Just pick my control plane.
Absolutely, and we understand everybody's going to be using a little bit of all the different clouds because they all have certain features or sovereignty or compliance or AI algorithms or hardware in their data centers that are just certain workloads are served better, but you want to be able to move those workloads seamlessly. So now you're seeing all this hybrid stuff. And the comment on your tweet was, when are they going to buy Nutanix? And honestly, I count the days. I feel like that might just happen.
That was good. Good conversation. And, looking forward to the next 3 weeks of Google Cloud Next.
Yeah, let's do. I love these 16-week long events. I didn't even know how to tweet about it and again, another week of Google Cloud Next. Oh, and again, another week of Google Cloud Next. By the way, it's my radio voice. Am I doing it?
Oh, it was good. It was low enough. At about 4 a.m. in the morning, I sound just like that.
So let's jump into topic number 4, HPE, another acquisition. This time in the SD-WAN space.
That's right.
The company has been really really forward. It's been ambitious with acquisitions. Some of these acquisitions we're still kind of waiting to say, is this acquisition going to be a winner? Is it going to be a loser? Of course, we hope not. We don't want losers. And, we do like what HPE is doing in terms of an everything as a service strategy. And I think Antonio Neri has been aggressive in sort of finding these companies that have potential, that can add immediate revenue, differentiate products, but concurrently help the company get where it's going with services. And by the way, you know who it reminds me a little bit of? Cisco. Finding these companies that people are like, who? And Cisco does this. Like every few months, you'll hear about an acquisition, and and HP is starting to do more of that.
And by the way, I'll just add, HP didn't have a very good track record up until, I would say, about 2 years ago. In fact, some disastrous acquisitions that they ended up spinning out and taking write-offs. But I think MapR, Blue Data, a lot of these acquisitions that they made.
Cloud Cruiser. I mean, and a lot of them were very
Cloud
strategic.
Partners.
But the CTP, and part of that though, Pat, is because they're much more focused. So Antonio is showing kind of a laser focus, hybrid cloud and as a service. That's kind of look at everything. It's hybrid cloud as a service, and now they're starting to really make the investment in the software is required to connect these things, and then specialized hardware. But this to me it's a work from home play. The company's got its strength in sort of simple to configure SD-WAN, a little Meraki like in its core. And the idea is, the company has Aruba, and so building on Aruba to have something that's really designed for even all these remote workers. And as companies are going to continue to have remote work, infrastructure is going to be an important play, being able to securely add capacity so that employees can get connected, get access to all their applications, all their data seamlessly, concurrently, and securely. And so that's the move here. I mean, you're talking about a sub $1 billion acquisition that helps expand and differentiate Aruba and the overall HP portfolio. So, it's solid, but the one thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back to you, Pat, is these are the acquisitions where I really feel like looks good on paper. I need 6 months, 12 months to kind of hear about customer acquisition, market demand and integration. Because if this doesn't integrate into sort of that Aruba central platform, Is it just going to be another product that creates, confusion rather
Right.
than actually expansion for the
Right.
company?
So the company's been researching Silver Peak since its existence, and there used to be a plethora of SD-WAN folks out there. I think we counted 14 at one point, and that got narrowed down to 7, and it just keeps getting narrower and narrower. And I have confidence as Silver Peak as an ongoing entity. I like their technology, and I think you nailed it on the head. On it's all going to come down to integration. What's just super clear to me is how far HPE is going to go on its software stack integration play, and how broad they're going to go. I always thought the lack of an SD WAN capability was a little bit of a weakness, and they filled it.
Absolutely. Well, so here we go. So let's jump over to a little bit of a change of pace, Pat. You covered something is interesting, and you and I both work on this. We work a lot on the tech space, but we also, we advise companies on strategy that connects to overall brand and identity. One of the companies we track a lot and pay a lot of attention to is Amazon in this particular space. And so you wrote something on Forbes about Amazon focusing in more using technology and layering in different tools to fight counterfeiting, which is a total deviation from our normal, but cool.
Well, it's interesting, and one of the reasons that I track Amazon, the retail company, is because it's just one of those beasts of the industry, and primarily they're a tech play. Most of their innovation is based on technology, and so. The company announced a new counterfeit unit, and just from backdrop, a lot of the heat that Amazon gets from its consumers, from governments, even from the press, is you go on and you want to buy a pair of AirPods, and you get shipped a thing called EarPods that look like AirPods, but they were made somewhere weird, and you ended up getting ripped off. Now. 99.9+% of all products are legit, and anytime you have a market that you can put your products up on, just like Twitter, Twitter can't doing its best to control everybody, and Amazon is trying to control everybody here. I think so. First off, this was an announcement. They've always had a unit. In fact, in 2019, they rattle off some pretty crazy numbers. First off, they had invested $500 million. Okay, think about that. That's an expense. $500 million to do this. They have 8,000 employees. There are some tech companies that just have 8,000 employees. They blocked 6 billion fraudulent offerings in 2019, and they blocked 2.5 million bad actors before they even had the chance to do that. So. And their big uptake here is to add more people, add more resources. They're pulling people, they're hiring federal prosecutors, investigators, data analysts. I'm sure they're going to find a way to hack this in some way, shape or form. But, hats off to Amazon for again, responding to the challenge and putting some incredible investment numbers behind it.
Yeah, and I think the note here too is when it comes to the retail industry and e-commerce, this is the bellwether company.
Yeah.
And so as we've heard, scandals and issues with counterfeiting go across the internet and across e-commerce, Amazon will set the bar for how technologies like data streaming, computer vision, augmented and virtual reality tools could all be utilized to not only enhance customer experiences, but to make sure that what you're getting and what you're comparing to can be exacted, because the differences are so subtle and counterfeiting is so good in a lot of cases that when you pay for a Louis Vuitton bag, though, you get a Louis Vuitton bag, and it looks real and to the average eye, but for someone that paid $2,000 for a backpack, for instance. You want the real thing.
You mean people would actually pay that much for a backpack?
I don't know. It seems insane to me, but
fools.
Absolute fools.
All right.
All right, let's jump. Yeah, So let's jump to the last topic, Pat. Another company we always like to track closely, but it's Qualcomm. So, it's been a quieter year for Qualcomm in a good way. You know, they haven't been in any major lawsuits with Apple. They're not facing too many major,
nobody tried to acquire them this year.
Affairs. They're not trying to be acquired by a company that's falling far behind in its marketplace right now. And
you must be talking about Broadcom.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oops.
Gotcha.
I wasn't going to say it.
Okay.
But the point is that what is happening and what's loudly growing is 5G. 5G is being adopted, and with what we're seeing with COVID, with the pandemic, with work from home, connectivity is going to matter more than ever before. And we're going to see 5G not only impact the enterprise, but it's going to impact our devices. You and I both have 5G devices. We have some 5G devices that are out in the market. We have some 5G devices that nobody's ever seen before.
Exactly.
The point is these really fast and cool devices are neat. But what Qualcomm's been doing for the last few years is really leading the charge in terms of building the gold standard with its Snapdragon 865 of premium 5G and a premium platform for 5G devices. So that came out earlier, but this week the company announced what it's going to be its Plus series.
Yeah.
It's Plus 5G. And this means, some key improvements. In fact, this is where you get all nerdy, but I mean, we're talking faster CPU, faster GPU, or more powerful and faster GPU, improved connectivity on Wi-Fi, which is going to mean better everything.
Yeah.
What say you?
Yeah. So this is a classic midlife kicker, which is to me just the sign that they want to be even more competitive, right? And if you think of from their customers' point of view, the Samsungs of the world, the Oppo of the world, they want to have a reason to go into the market toward the end of the year, right, around Western holidays, and have something new. And for good or bad, a lot of consumers view a difference in the CPU and the GPU and the connectivity as a big adder. And I mean, as an enthusiast, I certainly do. And this is definitely targeted at enthusiasts. So it's a smart, tactical, pragmatic view before they bring out their next big series. And just if we've seen every year, Qualcomm always brings out their latest and greatest at CES.
Yeah, and here we wait, because
exactly.
Is there going to be a CES? And
well, there will be. They were strong arming everybody, and I recommended all my clients to don't do any long-term guaranteed contracts. At a minimum, get a hotel, right, for executive one-on-ones. But they're backtracking on that right now, and strongly leaning to a digital opening.
It's going to be a snooze. How the heck are you going to do that digitally? I mean, now if you did something like the 6.5 Summit event at the 6.5summit.com, yeah, that would be like a suite.
Oh, exactly.
Event. But I mean, trying to have like thousands of vendors, I mean, how are we even going to experience that? It's going to be so much crappy content. There's just no way that's not going to be just chuck full of crap. I mean, there's going to be a couple of good segments. I'm sure they can do a good keynote segment, but for what you're going to pay, I don't know. It's hard to recommend.
But not having to bust my ass to get to the South Hall.
Oh, God.
That's, when you have about 20 minutes and you realize the bus line's 20 minutes
bad
long.
Mobile World
Kind of sounds pretty good.
One of those things.
Yeah.
One last note on the 865 Plus is they did include their 5th generation AI system, which quietly, and talk about quietly, I said quiet earlier, but quietly, Qualcomm's really been pushing the limits on the on-device AI technologies. And that's going to be a big thing for things like language translation, but also for gamers. I mean, in the US here, where I know a lot of you are US based, but we have a global audience. In the US, gaming on devices is still kind of the second gaming platform. But like overseas, in Asia, I mean, most people have 2 devices. One is just for gaming. And so Qualcomm definitely recognizes that, and they're pushing, because this will cause some people to upgrade. They'll upgrade just for that capability, because this is like their console. Yeah. This is their console. So anyways, Pat, great show, man. It's always a lot of fun. We
need to try to do this together once the pandemic is lifted, and but
I like that.
Then again, I'll probably be in airports 40 weeks out of the year. So
we'll be safe.
We can.
So just showing everybody that, we have been in proximity working on the 6.5 Summit, 6.5summit.com. But we've been safe. We've been masked up. We've been going out, respecting the social distancing. Both tested, made sure we were cool
That's right.
before we went out. But just want to say thanks to everybody that's watching this. Really appreciate you watching us live. Everyone that's listening to us on the podcast on Apple or Spotify or SoundCloud, appreciate you there too. Hit that subscribe button. Stick with us. We're gonna have more episodes here, more interviews coming. And again, one last plug back, but we do have the summit, and it is the65summit.com. And we have Michael Dell. We have AMD's Lisa Su. We got Splunk CEO Doug Merritt. We got the president of Qualcomm. We got executives from companies like IBM, Microsoft, Dell, Cisco, Oracle. I mean, just so many companies.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't leave anyone out.
SAS,
We-
SAP,
we-
Intel.
We appreciate all of you very much. But we want you to check out the site so you can see all these great speakers, all the great content. Sign up, register, attend the sessions free August 4, August 5. But for now, we got to go. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Take care.